Welcome again to the Rolex Race Village here in Hobart. Day 5 of the 77th Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. And those still at sea have been racing now for 3 days, 20 hours and 45 minutes. But the headline banner, the TP52 Celestial, Sam Haynes has been declared overall winner, claiming the famous Tattersall Cup. After a second place last year, it's been a nervous wait since he spoke to our own Peter Shipway when he finished.
At one point we were 280 miles from the finish line and there was 4 52-footers together, and yeah, here we are today, all here in the same dock, and it could have been any of us really. But yeah, it was very tough, 40 knots or so, and you know, gusts coming through, spin drift blowing. It was just, you know, last thing you really need. You want to go in the river and be able to feel a bit like you've put away the weather. But no, we had weather at every corner in this race.
Yeah, well, Peter Shipway, that was a couple of days ago. It has been a very nervous wait. What would he be feeling? You yourself, as a former winner on handicap with Love and War, what would Sam be feeling at the moment?
Well, I think absolute elation, Gordon. Relief, elation, all those emotions, because he had a bit of a wait to get the overall victory confirmed. It came through late yesterday afternoon, and it just crowns an amazing year for this boat and this crew, and it's a thoroughly deserved victory. Pushed hard all the way by the other TP52s, and a stellar performance also from Guelo. Let's not forget that, only a few minutes behind Celestial. But for Sam and his crew, I think elation and a reward for all the work they've done throughout the year to come to this Rolex race and win it finally. This means Sam's now had a second in the race, a third in the race, and now the ultimate prize, the Tattersall Cup.
Well, Peter, we had 109 original starters. 83 yachts have now finished. There are 17 still racing. We've had 9 retirements, but of those still racing all the way back to the 30-footer Currawong with our senior ladies on board. They're still a couple of 100 miles from the finish, expected to make it by maybe New Year's Day in the afternoon. But let's have a look at those still at sea. There are 17 still racing, Peter.
Yes, there's a lot in the bay and in the river. Maluka, the little smallest boat in the race, she's done very well. She's just round Tasman. Salt Lines still outside, and Gun Runner. Then we go back up the coast, right up the coast, and I'll find Currawong. There she is. She's almost at the tip of Tasmania.
So just completed the crossing of the famous Bass Strait.
Yeah, so we'll see them sometime tomorrow, I think. So they'll probably be in before New Year's Eve. That's the good news. And the remainder of this fleet, light winds out there at the moment, as we can see perhaps behind us on the Derwent, but the sea breeze may come in to propel a lot of those home today. So majority of the boats will be in certainly by late today.
Well, it's been a fast race. The story with the 100-footers, Andu Comanche was the dominant 100-footer for John Winning Jr., just finishing a few hours outside her race record. But then the TP52s, as expected, came into their own. And Peter, we saw that wonderful duel, as you mentioned, between Celestial and Guelo in Storm Bay. Really, Guelo had to finish 20 minutes ahead, I think, to pip Celestial, but it was a fantastic tacking duel, wasn't it? Match racing up Storm Bay and the Derwent.
Well, here they are, just ferocious conditions. There's Guelo, the white hull, Matt Donald's boat from Sydney, and the blue hull of Celestial, both designed by Judel Vrolik, the German design team, both launched in 2011, both from the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, where Sam's the Vice Commodore. And you can see the top of the mainsail there, just a bit of a tear in the Celestial mainsail. They had to stay right in touch with Guelo because they rate a little bit lower, so they just had that few extra minutes up their sleeve. And as it transpired, they won on corrected time by 15 minutes. So there's Guelo. You can see the breeze and the accuracy of the crews steering these boats and trimming these boats. These puffs were coming down the river, really squally conditions. And the crew have really got to react to that. There'll be someone calling the wind or the squalls to assist the helmsman, the trimmers, to keep the boats going at full potential. But all Celestial really had to do was stay in touch with Guelo being so close to the finish, of course.
Yes, and making sure there's no further damage in those situations. Matt Donald and Chris Townsend closest on Guelo, 2 former financiers from Hong Kong. They started twilight sailing there over 20 years ago, and here they are now almost pipping and taking the overall handicap honours. But Celestial, Sam Haynes, proved too good in the final stages, and what a thrilling ride it was coming up the Derwent River.
You can just see how just fresh it is. The headsail's fairly well eased. They've got 2 reefs in the mainsail. There's the tactician, Rob Greenhalgh, standing up, just calling the waves and the wind to the helmsman, and Rob's been on winners a number of times, and he's really put in a performance to lift this boat into world-class standard.
Yeah, well, there was a nice little celebration. When it finally hits home, Peter, is it an anticlimax after 628 nautical miles?
I don't think so. I think it's probably the reverse, because they know they've beaten all the boats in their class. So once you win your division, the rest plays out. You can't have any control over that. But if you win your division, you obviously stand a good chance of winning overall, and that's what's happened.
Let's have a look at the celebrations on board Celestial after they finished. This is where family gets involved.
That's Rob Greenhalgh there.
He was on Whisper last year for Dave Griffith. And he's the Englishman who's the speed man, isn't he? The helmsman who makes the boat go faster incrementally. Amazing performance.
Tremendous record around the world for Rob, but let's not forget the rest of the crew. I mean, he couldn't do it by himself, and Sam recognised that yesterday. He said the crew were just absolutely phenomenal, and to sail these boats like that, you've got to be.
Well, a change of pace from the frantic TP52s to the magnificent Maxi. It was a Maxi in its day when it arrived in Hobart in 1971. Kealoha 2, Peter. Keith and Paddy Broughton from the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia. A grand old girl, and wasn't she quite magnificent?
What a sight that is. She won line honours in 1971, and she was launched in 1964 as a sloop, single mast, and later converted to 2 masts. And what a sight! Just as you said, Gordon, a classic.
Peter, a little bit of trivia. You mentioned Lindsay May, his 49th Rolex Sydney Hobart. But it's exactly 25 years since Brenda Bella crossed the line here in Hobart to take line honours. And Richie Snow was on board. He was 16 years of age and he steered the boat across. He is on board here, and Lindsay May was also on board Brenda Bella back in 1997. And they're about to cross the line.
Well, Richie Snow was George Snow's son, of course, the owner of Brenda Bella.
And his uncle, Terry Snow, owns Canberra Airport.
That's right.
Yeah. So a real nautical heritage. And Paddy and Keith Broughton certainly will be celebrating. Paddy, of course, the famous rower for England.
And as we mentioned yesterday, she's off to England to compete in the Fastnet race. I think she leaves on Australia Day to sail back to England around Cape Horn.
Peter, a highlight of this update this morning will be crossing to Peter G down on Celestial at her berth for the presentation of the famous Tattersall Cup. Special moment there for the crew and Sam Haynes.
Yes, it will be. It's an honour that's richly deserved, and there'll be a lot of joy and elation on the dock, and I think there'll be a lot of people there to watch it. But I think at midday we've got another presentation here on the stage. The medallions for the crew.
The Premier of Tasmania. And what about Mistral in the two-handed? Rupert Henry, I know he's a close mate of yours. A sensational performance by Rupert and Greg O'Shea.
Phenomenal. A little 34-footer. She was the 41st boat to finish, and here's Rupert and Greg now just approaching in Storm Bay. They thought at one stage, a day or so ago, that they might not be able to finish. The top rudder bearing broke away. They've got 2 rudders on this little boat. Here they are just jibing now. 2 men. I mean, they just performed brilliantly. A fully crewed boat couldn't do any better. But she beat a lot of bigger boats home, and she looks now assured to win the two-handed prize for this race. Rupert's had a bit of bad luck recently. He retired after last year's Rolex race, Sydney Hobart race. He went across to race in the Atlantic, the Route de Rhum, the famous race from France to Guadeloupe, and he had to retire with boat damage in another small 40-footer. But here they are. Look at that, this lovely little boat, and what a performance. And as Rupert said, they thought they mightn't get there a few days ago.
Peter, there were 8 international entries this year, and Cassiopeia the Hungarian boat, the second Hungarian entry in the Rolex Sydney Hobart, but the first Hungarian boat to finish. So they finished yesterday afternoon, and what a fabulous moment for Ballant and Agoston Sipos. They said they've never experienced anything like the finish they received, the generous reception from the people of Hobart yesterday afternoon.
A lovely boat. I think they did it in comfort. I think they've got
3 bedrooms, and 3 bathrooms.
Well,
but they enjoyed going past the taste of summer, and they got a rousing ovation.
Well, here we go with Moneypenny, Sean Langman's yacht, who won their division, which is a very good performance. They won division, excuse me, 0.
Yeah, they also took out the Audi Centre Sydney Blue Water point score for the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia. Sean Langman was able to win the Noakes Sydney to Gold Coast race, a race that his company sponsored. So it's been a fantastic year for Sean Langman and Moneypenny. Now, what about another 200 entry? I'm talking about Campbell Jeeves and Wendy Tuck. They're in the Derwent at the moment, closing on the finishing line, but we had a lovely Instagram post from them yesterday. We're hoping to bring that to you, but that's how close they are, Peter, to the finishing line here at Castray Esplanade.
Light airs, you can see that in the river as they approach. They performed exceptionally well again this year. Last year they were 3rd overall in the two-handed division. At the moment they're down in 11th spot. But I mean, even to finish a Hobart fully crewed is phenomenal, but this is doubly phenomenal, if you like, to two-handers to come across the line and finish this race. There's Campbell steering. See Wendy to leeward there, just slight, trimming the Genoa, and very light airs. Lovely little Beneteau boat, Speedwell, owned by Campbell's father, Colin Jeeves. So he's been very kind in lending the boat to his son and to Wendy.
There's Rest Point Casino off to the left, and the Derwent Sailing Squadron with all those masts in the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania, which is the host club here in the capital of Tasmania. But Speedwell, congratulations to Campbell Jeeves and Wendy Tuck. Yeah, they had every possible bit of weather. They even had ice falling on them at one stage there coming down the Tasmanian coast.
Yeah, well, they'll be 84th to finish, but they'll be elevated quite highly in the handicap results. But because she's a little boat that rates very low or has a very good handicap.
So 84 to finish once they cross the line. 9 boats have retired, and that means we have 16 still racing once Speedwell crosses the line. But I think we can now go down to Peter G, who's alongside Celestial, the winner of the Tattersall Cup, the overall winner, skippered by Sam Haynes. And Peter, what's the scene down there? I'd imagine you'd have a media throng.
Yes, Gordon, the good ladies and gentlemen of the media have come here in their droves to see this on-dock presentation to the overall winner of the 2022 Rolex Sydney Hobart Celestial. The crew are on deck. Sam Haynes, the skipper, has just joined them, and the trophy that they've fought so long and hard for, persistence really pays off, and the George Adams Tattersall's trophy is about to be brought down the walkway to this second finger at Kings Pier. And Arthur Lane, the Commodore of the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, hasn't exactly got his white gloves on, but he did have a white towel to keep the trophy in pristine condition. And Mr. Benoit Folletti has the Rolex timepiece, the General Manager of Rolex Australia. Some final official duties just to be undertaken, and then we'll be presenting the trophy to Dr. Sam Haynes and his crew, who I must say don't look quite as fresh as the boat does. The boat is looking in pristine condition. They've had the sponges out and just getting rid of any remnants of any salt left on the deck. She looks like she hasn't come 628 nautical miles to Hobart in first place. They'll no doubt be preparing to send her back to Sydney now that they've won first, second and third, or Sam Haynes has done in this race. He's got the full set of medals and he's about to officially receive the trophy.
Yes, and there's that magnificent trophy, the Tattersall Cup, off to the right. But Peter Shipway, Peter mentioned the ambience here this morning. I think a lot of the sailors have been to the Customs House Hotel and also the Shipwrights Hotel, so they're feeling very relaxed. I think that's probably the right word at the moment.
Can you be relaxed with a hangover? I don't know. I suppose you can be, but I would say...
I think you've got to be, haven't you?
Well, I think Sam and the boys probably partied pretty hard last night once the result was confirmed, and deservedly so, I think. And I assume the other crews that have done well have been hard at it, but I think everyone enjoys the drink, certainly once they get to Constitution Dock here and King's Pier. We're just watching behind us now. I think it's probably Speedwell coming across the finishing line. But anyway, back to the presentation shortly, and this will be a very proud moment for Sam and the crew, and as I said earlier, thoroughly deserved.
Well, there were 20 two-handed entries starting of the 109, and for the first time they were eligible for the overall handicap prize of the Tattersall Cup. But take us through the challenges of being a two-handed crew. We had, as I say, 20 boats. We've got Campbell Jeeves and Wendy Tuck about to cross the finishing line at the moment. The challenge, the sleep, the stamina, particularly when they've had all manner of weather during the race.
Well, Gordon, I've only really sailed fully crewed boats, and that's hard enough. I could just imagine two-handers, what they go through, but they've got autopilots, which they're allowed to use to steer the boat if they're performing manoeuvres or sail trim, but there'd always be one person on deck at least to keep watch. So, you know, it's difficult. I mean, but the boats are set up for two-handed sailing. They've got a lot of systems in place that allows them to change sails perhaps a little bit easier, and they take things very quietly and carefully, and you've got to be doubly careful when on a two-handed boat, because one mistake, you can't get a number of crew up to help you if a sail goes overboard. You've got to rely on yourself and your mate. So they take a lot of care in the preparation of the boat, preparation of sail changes, preparation of change of course. And we just saw before Mistral jibing in the river. You know, it was very precisely done by Rupert and Greg O'Shea.
Yeah, that was an amazing bit of work there with that jibe. But the presentation now about to happen. The Managing Director of Rolex Australia has the magnificent timepiece, Benoit Folletti and Arthur Lane, the Commodore of the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia. So, bring it on.
Don't drop it, Arthur. Don't drop it. He looks nervous, Arthur. Here we go.
Security guards here in the Rolex Village have done a mighty job. You certainly don't argue with them, Peter. But the Rolex timepiece and the Tattersall Cup now to be presented on board. There's Arthur Lane, the Commodore of the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia.
Yeah, proud moment for Arthur as well. He's done a fantastic job for the club, and there's Sam. Well, you dream of these moments, Gordon, and the dreams come true for Sam. Just behind Sam there, the crew member with the glasses between Sam and the trophy, David Chapman. Now, his sister is married to Hugh Trahan, so there's some good royalty there of sailing.
Absolutely, yeah. 15-strong crew. MD of Rolex Australia, Benoit Folletti, and yeah, you'd love to have that timepiece, wouldn't you? Greeting the new year.
Sam might buy the crew one each. Yeah, a terrific moment for these guys. There's Arthur. Oh, don't fall in, Arthur. Jeez.
And traditionally, Peter G, in this situation, the skipper gets chucked in the drink.
Well, Peter, I've talked to Gordon, I've talked to Sam, and he says he is not going in. But when I assured him that the water temperature is 21 degrees, he sort of half thought about it. So I reckon if we make enough noise down here at the dock, and the crew certainly would be up for it, I'm sure, he might just have a swim. Not with the trophy, I hasten to add.
We might see if the Rolex watch is waterproof, Pete. You'd hope it would be.
Yes, exactly. It's a good test for the timepiece. I'm sure it could handle it. Just don't know whether Sam will, though. He said last night he called it a night early. He was at the Shipwrights Arms and decided that discretion was the better part of valour. He'd get a good night's sleep and prepare himself for the presentations today. There's a really great feeling down here on the docks. It was Rob Greenodge that held up the presentation. He was late getting here.
Well, these beautiful pictures going right round the globe at this moment of triumph for Sam Haynes and Celestial, who have claimed the Tattersall Cup in 2022.
Gordon, it's the most famous trophy in Australian sailing, and probably one of the famous trophies in Australian sport. You know, you look at the Tattersall Cup, the Melbourne Cup, obviously, Australian Open tennis trophies. They are very famous trophies, so hard to win in any sport. And here we are, Sam now and his crew of Celestial. Very proud, I'm sure, very pleased, relieved, all those emotions I said earlier. And the overriding emotion would be elation.
And they haven't been sitting on their backsides this year, have they? Sam has been campaigning around the globe, and that crew has shown that they are right up there with the very best in the business. I think it was the skipper of Warrior 1, Chris Sheehan, the American, who said that Australian sailors in the Rolex Sydney Hobart are damn the best in the world. And time and again we see it as Australian sailors make their mark right around the globe.
Well, it's a tough race to win. I mean, it's a race that's got everything. You know, you have a lovely start and a lovely first night, and then get down the Tassie coast and you get belted somewhere. And they got belted closer to the finish, but the smaller boats got belted halfway up the Tassie coast, and that took them out of handicap calculations. But you've got to be in the right place at the right time as we watch Speedwell. Just approaching the finishing line now. Campbell Jeeves and Wendy Tuck. Another terrific performance by this little 34-footer. It's a tiny boat, and here they go now, just across.
There's the finishing box on the left, manned by officials.
There's the inner finishing mark, and they're across now. So well done. I think there'll be about, what did I say earlier, about 80-something or other to finish. There'll be 84th to finish.
So 16 yachts still at sea, Peter, and the last boat has just crossed Bass Strait, that being Currawong, Kathy Jeeves and Bridget Canham. But we haven't mentioned the honorary officials involved in running a race of this magnitude. So all of the race officials from the Cruising Yacht Club, from the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania, all honorary roles, and it really goes like clockwork.
Well, it's a massive effort to get this race underway on Boxing Day, and the preparation would start in early January for next year's Rolex Sydney Hobart race. And the yacht clubs work tremendously hard to make this race such a success, and they rely heavily on volunteers, as you said, both here in Hobart and in Sydney. There's Rob Greenholtz at the front there with on the right of the trophy as we look. It's being passed around. The boys will get a nice feel of it. And of course, second last year, and now they won the ultimate prize. And I think Sam was very generous in his praise of the other TP52s, which are, the similar sized boats. And he just said they, at the times there was 4 of them all together, and it could have gone either way. And as it did, it fell his way. But let's not forget Guaylo and Caro and Warrior 1, who were the top 4 boats.
And spare a thought for Peter Wrigley, Coa, one of the TP52s, who had to retire early after colliding with a sunfish. So keen to make it to Hobart, but not to be. So that's the luck of the draw. Yeah. As Sean Langman told us, that they also had a sunfish wrapped around their rudder on Moneypenny.
Yeah. Guy there on the right just gone out of vision with a sun visor. Jack McCartney, part of the crew last year, and obviously this year, an outstanding 18-foot skiff sailor. He's been a very strong member of this crew for a number of years, and here we go. Come on, Sam, you can do better than that. It's David Chapman there, right of screen. There we go.
Oh!
Be careful, Peter G.
Well, Gordon, Sam had to wait to pop the champagne because Matt Parker wasn't on board and he's stolen the show a little bit. He made a late arrival. He's done 16 Rolex Sydney Hobarts now, and he knew just when to arrive on the deck as the champagne is popped here. What a happy scene. This boat, you know, the skipper has described it as an absolute weapon. I think Celestial is a very appropriate name for this yacht because it certainly is a rocket ship and at the head of the 52-foot fleet worldwide. So what a fitting way to cap a brilliant 22 Rolex Sydney Hobart, the 77th edition of this race for Celestial. The Sydney vet, really, Sam Haynes, he can't really bottle up his emotions any longer, and they're all going to the foredeck now. I wonder if this might indicate that he's about to go for a dip. I don't know. It's looking a little bit that way, maybe to wash off the remnants of the champagne.
Hold your breath. We saw a beautiful aerial there of the King's Pier and the Prince's Pier and also the Constitution Dock, the original berthing. But wow, there he goes. Is that the skipper?
That's him. And I think he's surfaced. I'll just go and have a look. He's just going back to get the cap. That's going to be a great souvenir. I don't think you're going to get Sam, sunburnt Sam in the minute. Oh, looks like there's another crew member about to go. In fact, the whole lot could go in.
Get rid of those designer sunglasses.
I think Mel Parker should go, really, for being late to the party.
You could do yourself an
Someone
hussy
doesn't
injury.
like water. They've got through the race unscathed. I don't know whether they'll survive the celebrations.
I noticed a couple of the crew hovering in the background, keeping well away from the rail. But just sheer elation and euphoria for the crew of Celestial. And that champagne is almost done.
I can't talk to him.
But yeah, up in the middle top there, we have the original berthing place for the yachts, Peter. 9 starters in the original race in 1945, and that's where they berthed, in Constitution Dock. And you can see that already boats are in there, and they're probably the West Coaster boats on the left-hand top corner there of Constitution Dock, and they actually have to open the bridge to allow those boats in.
Yes, it's a wonderful scene, and to be back in Constitution Dock is terrific. But there's Sam, a drenched Sam Haynes and a drenched Jack McCartney. I think that's maybe David Chapman there as well. Yeah, it is, David. Get his hair back in place. So they've been long-standing members of this crew.
Yeah, very tight. As John Winning Jr. says, it's all about the culture and the teamwork and every cog in the chain. And here you're looking at the elite in this Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. The best in the business. They've proved it here in 2022. Photos being taken with the Tattersall Cup. I know a lot of the trophies, Peter, they have a lid and you can pour some champagne and alcohol into them. But this one looks as though it's rigid.
It's a beautiful trophy, isn't it? I mean,
bulletproof.
Just looks magnificent. There's the throngs there on the dock, and you'll be back on the stage, Gordon, I think at noon, to present the medals to the winning crews.
Exactly. Yes, that'll happen for the audience here in the Rolex Race Village. The special medallions will be presented by the Premier of Tasmania, Jeremy Rockcliffe, and that will happen at noon local time. So, yeah, very special occasion, Peter Shipway. Perhaps you might like to take us back to the tracker for a final wrap of standings, divisional standings, and where we're sitting at the moment, because 84 yachts have now finished. We've had still just the 9 retirements, and there are 16 boats still racing all the way back to Currawong, which has just completed her crossing of Bass Strait, and expected in New Year's Day, maybe mid-afternoon, all going well. And won't they get a welcome?
Well, we might have a look now, Gordon, at the handicap positions, and let's start with the smaller boats. Most of them are still at sea, and we can see this is Division 5. The fleet is broken up into 5 divisions, and smaller boats in Division 5, the big boats in Division 0, so that's 6 divisions rather. So Maluka, the smallest boat and the oldest boat in the fleet, is currently leading Division 5. 36 miles to go, so she's round Tasman. White Bay Azuro in second place, Crux a 2-hander in third place, and King Billy already finished, so she's the clubhouse leader in Division 5. And on board King Billy was Billy Wright on his 20th Hobart, and he's said for 20 years that's always his last Hobart, and he keeps coming back. And Vanessa Dudley, 24 Hobarts for her, the second most for any woman in the race.
And White Bay 6 Azuro, it is definitely the last race for Shane Kearns. This, according to his doctor, will be your last, and what a magnificent boat that has been. It's another one of these showpiece restorations, and on a couple of occasions has come close to winning the race on handicap, only to be denied by Mother Nature.
Now he'll be a popular win. This is Midnight Rambler in Division 4. Eddie Saltis won the tragic 1998 Hobart in a boat with the same name, but this is a different boat. He now resides in Tasmania, and he looks to have won Division 4 with Mistral second and Ariel third. We go into Division 3. The boats are starting to get bigger. Sunrise, the Fastnet race winner from last year and all the way up from England. She has won Division 3 from Packman and South Brittany. Division 2, now we're getting into the bigger boats, Enterprise Next Generation. Now, this is an interesting story. You can see the asterisk against that name. She was granted redress for going to the assistance of COA when she broke a rudder. She stood by her, and they allowed her an extra 2 hours' time. They reduced her elapsed time by 2 hours, and they paid absolute compliment to this crew for standing by a boat in distress, which is the first thing you do at sea. So she has won that division from Rod Jones in Allegria Republic, and Chutzpah, Bruce Taylor. That's provisional. I must say that division is provisional because there is a protest pending. Then we get into the bigger boys, and Celestial, of course, won her division from Guaylo and Caro, and that was the overall result. And then the big boys, Division 0, Money Penny, Sean Langman, Alive from Tasmania was second, and the URM group was third. But let's have a look at the PHS division. Now, PHS is Performance Handicap. The boats are not put in a computer. It's a random handicap, boats that don't rate under or don't want to be rated under the IRC. And a few of these boats are still at sea, but Cyan Moon is leading. She's just south of the Garrow. She's got 3 miles to go, but the boats in the clubhouse, as they say, Mako is first, Allegro second, and Wild Oats, a 2-time winner of the race, not to be confused with the big Wild Oats, Hamilton Island Wild Oats. She is currently 4th. She's won this race twice on handicap. So that's the PHS division. Now we look at the Corinthian division. These are boats that don't have any professional crews on board. They're just average, well, I shouldn't say average, but just day-to-day sailors that go out and enjoy it and don't have any of the pros on board. And the leader here, and this is really a good performance, is Ed Saltis again on Midnight Rambler. Richard Hudson from the Royal Prince Alfred Yacht Club in Sydney is second, and Mistral keeps bobbing up. Rupert Henry is in third spot. Now let's go to the 2-handers, and as we said earlier, Mistral will be the winner here. Sunfast Racing, Lee Condell from New South Wales looks to be getting second, and Packman, Peter Elkington from Queensland, a very good performance by them, looks to have third place sewn up. And then Crux, which is still north of the Iron Pot in the river, she's battling up the river at a slow speed. If she finishes where she's predicted to finish, will finish 4th, but it looks almost certain that they will be the top 3, Mistral, Sunfast Racing and Packman. And the final division, the Sydney 38s, there's a few of those racing. They're in and dusted. There's 5 in that division. St Quant, Kim Jagger, a really good competitor, 30-plus Hobart races for Kim. He'll win that over Huster La Vista. The Grimes family, skippered by 22-year-old twins, Tom and Jessica, with their father Richard aboard for his 30th Hobart, so they will get second. And the boat from New Caledonia, Puto, will be third. So that wraps up at this stage, but I must say some of those results are still provisional because there's boats still racing. But at the moment, the all honours, of course, the Tattersall Cup, Sam Haynes and his crew on Celestial.
Well, Peter Shipway, you are a fountain of information. Thank you for all of that insight. And repeating earlier, as we look at the celebrations on board Celestial, that Andrew Comanche, it's almost 2.5 days ago, Peter, finished in the early hours of the morning, 1 day, 11 hours, 56 minutes, just under 3 hours outside her race record. She finished at 12:57 a.m. and she beat Lorca Neck, the other 100-footer, by 26.5 minutes. Blackjack another 17 minutes, back in third place across the line. And in fourth was the 9-time Line Honours winner, Wild Oats 11, 1 hour and 41 minutes. And all our fingers across that Wild Oats 11 will be back. Hamilton Island Wild Oats 11 will be back in 2023. You spoke to Mark Richards. What's your feeling?
Mixed, I think. He wasn't confident, I don't think, or overconfident they'd be back. But I think once things settle down a bit and they reassess the program, I would hope they'd be back. But who knows? It'd be lovely to see her back because she's been such an important part of this race. And 9 times a Line Honours winner is phenomenal.
Okay, well that just about takes us out from the Rolex Race Village here in Hobart. I think we've enjoyed all of the celebrations. There are still 16 yachts at sea, and of the 109, we've had just the 9 retirements. The next happening here in the Race Village will be at noon, in about an hour and a half, when the Premier of Tasmania will present the medallions to the crew of Sam Haynes and his Celestial team. So on behalf of Peter Shipway, we'll sign off from the dock here. And I think we've earned a cup of coffee, Peter.
Maybe a Cascade beer.
Why not? See you this afternoon at 4 o'clock.